nation's founding fathers understood well how governments can become coercive and self-serving, so they were very careful to include a Bill of Rights into our Constitution to prevent this. The most fundamental of these rights is the belief that holds that a person is innocent until proven guilty. The Sixth Amendment was written to give the accused the right to a speedy trial, and the Eighth Amendment was written to prohibit excessive bail, excessive fines, and cruel and unusual punishment. In the United States, our government is holding a prisoner, Bradley Manning, in detention for over 9 months, in solitary confinement in a 6 by 12-foot prison cell, where he is being stripped naked, forbidden to exercise. All this despite the fact that he has never been convicted, much less even charged with a crime. Put aside any assumptions of guilt or innocence, or whether you believe Manning is a traitor or a hero. An American citizen has the right to a speedy trial and to not be held in a punitive detention for so long a period of time without being charged with anything. Even a member of Congress has been unable to obtain permission to meet with the prisoner. This violation of our Constitution is what brought hundreds to the Quantico Marine Base in protest. Hundreds of protesters were filing in to voice their displeasure that the laws in our nation's Bill of Rights were so blatantly being disregarded. However, the focus of this video is not about the protest itself, but rather the government's overwhelming response to the protest and the unfolding of a darker subtext evolving in our society. We drove past the rally as we were arriving and saw people holding signs and chanting. Once our vehicle was parked in the approved parking location, we started walking towards the rally site. I was amazed at the extent of the forces that the government had brought to this event. We passed literally dozens of police cars in the parking lot, large police command stations, trailers, horse trailers, as well as prisoner buses. As we walked towards the protest site, we viewed dozens of riot police hidden in the woods. These were the first disquieting signs of the enormous level of police presence for this event. Further down the road, there were police mounted on horses, police with dogs, and dozens of other police manning a barrier designed to funnel the protesters into a small area. After a few speeches, the protesters formed a line to march and place flowers at the memorial statue that commemorates the Marines' raising of the flag at Iwo Jima during World War II. It was at this time that it became very apparent that the police were going to control every aspect of the event and to choreograph this event to their will. Daniel Ellsberg and other military veterans were not allowed to go to the memorial and were told that they had to throw the flowers through a gate at the statue. You could hear the police saying what the people with the flowers should do, where the crowd should move, where the media should go. The demonstrators were actually trapped inside these barriers and were completely penned in and were unable to either enter or leave the protest area. Only those with press credentials had some freedom of movement. It was as if a director was controlling a script. Now there's a marked difference in laying flowers respectfully at the foot of the monument and throwing them through a gate. This subtle difference was obviously lost on the police who were choreographing the event so thoroughly. Suddenly, in the distance, you could see a large number of riot police assembling and forming a line with intersecting shields. This phalanx looked like Imperial stormtroops from the Star Wars movie series. The riot police gathered their forces, started advancing and pushing towards the crowd. Questions arose in the crowd as to what precipitated this aggressive stance. Chants and protest signs were hardly a cause for such a strong reaction. It was obvious that the intent was a preemptive move to intimidate. This protest began as a respectful and reserved event, but this trapping of the crowd, the choreographed directions, the riot police pushing into the crowd infuriated the protesters. You could feel the energy level of the protest rise to a whole new level in response to these police strategies.
Free Bradley!
Why were the police trapping the demonstrators? What is it the police were trying to protect? Why are they pushing into the crowd? Do they really need such overwhelming force with helicopters circling overhead? Then I spotted troops with automatic rifles. You could clearly see that they had large capacity magazines that were doubled up to increase the number of rounds they carried. Why do they need automatic rifles for a group of peaceful protesters? Do they really need AR-15s for AARP members? Again, this was certainly done to intimidate the crowd. No one in the crowd we spoke with expressed any fear of this show of overwhelming force. However, the irony is that this did show the fear the government has of its own people, and that fear was clearly being displayed here. The police closed the road off completely, despite the fact that traffic had been flowing in the earlier part of this event without any problems. There was no need for the police to block traffic, except for perhaps a short period of time, minutes, when the flowers were being placed by the small group that had been, quote, approved, unquote, by the police. Questions circulated among the protesters as to why the road had been blocked. Why were motorists being forced to wait in long lines only to be turned around? Was this an attempt to prevent people from seeing this demonstration? Nothing to see here. Turn your car around and just go back where you came from. Was this an attempt to aggravate the local people? Perhaps, or perhaps they did not like the fact that much of the earlier traffic expressed support for the event by honking their horns, revving their engines, or giving thumbs up as they drove past.
But I don't think that we're going to be able to achieve the kind of reform that we need through any electoral politics. I will always...
I left the rally with an uncomfortable feeling about the overwhelming force that had been brought to bear at this event. This was overkill, designed to subvert the voices of the people. I left the event with a newfound respect for the people of Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, when they stood up to the same type of overwhelming force, protesting the wrongs of their governments. As we were leaving, we saw two of the many people that were arrested for civil disobedience.
Way to go, guys! Proud of the people, proud of the people!
How brave these young people were. On the ride home, we tried to distill the events of the day. How the government tried to unnecessarily instill fear when there was no need to. How many of us can relate to such situations in life and work where authority oversteps and exerts its control and leaves us powerless while you know your convictions are right? We thought about how we would feel as parents if it was our child whose rights were being trampled. We thought about how we would feel as citizens as the rights our founding fathers fought so hard to give us were being dismantled. We thought about how we feel as human beings and how torture and degrading detention by any government insults our sensitivities. In this time of economic stress and great change in our nation, isn't it time to become involved and influence the direction of those changes?